So I was watching my old pal CH this morning. I was watching his channel, and he does this great series. I think he's been doing it for years now, where he talks about releases that he owns that he wants you to have. That's pretty much the title, like movie releases I own that I want you to have. And I was like, man, I think I have some pretty cool stuff that maybe isn't like part of the ordinary. I mean, like the collectors who love that stuff have, but I was like, I think I have some stuff that would bring up some interesting conversation, or maybe introduce somebody to something cool. So I figured I would kind of bite off that. Consider this inspiration if you're watching, man. Thank you for all the cool content. And I actually have something in here that he talked about in a recent video. So I was like, yeah, let me just show off some cool stuff. So this is a bunch of movies that I have in the collection that I encourage you to have in the collection. So, each of these are going to vary based on your personal taste and flavor. My taste kind of goes all over the place. I'm a little bit like, I don't know, eccentric in my taste for movies. I kind of collect everything and anything. And then my fiance, she also collects what she likes. And there's, my collection kind of varies from like kids films to the most extreme of exploitation, right? And I was kind of going through, I was perusing through, just trying to figure out kind of what I can really talk about. And the first one that popped out here was Climax. And this is by, I probably always say his name wrong. It's Gaspar Noé is the way that I say it. And it's a crazy little movie. I'm already a big fan of his anyway. I love Irreversible, Enter the Void. Big fan of him as a director. And if you've never really taken that plunge, trust me, checking out this guy's stuff is a plunge. You're going into a dark and seedy underworld, I will say. It's, like I said, particular taste, right? Climax, to me, out of his filmography, is the most accessible entry point, I think, because it doesn't go as extreme as, like, I would say Irreversible or Enter the Void goes. But it showcases all of the style, all of the flair, everything that makes him grand and great. And Climax is interesting. So this is actually a movie about a dance group who does an audition. So the movie opens with this giant choreographed dance scene. They have a celebration after where somebody has drugged the drinks. And what follows is a very hypnotic, horrible just series of events. I mean, this movie goes there. I mean, the dance scenes are great. Like, the first 30 minutes, I'm not a dancer. I'm not really one to watch stuff containing dance, but the first 30 minutes of this is just basically choreographed dance, and it's awesome to watch. Like, it's really, really cool to see. And then it starts getting into a nightmare, for lack of a better words, an absolute nightmare. And I think I would encourage anybody who's never seen a Gaspar Noé film before to check out his movies. They go there. They're extreme, I would consider. But I think Climax is a good point to start. This is available. You can just buy this on Amazon, It's really not a crazy length, 97 minutes. But if you're really into films that blur that line between a nightmare and reality, this is one that does that. Not watch this one with the kids. This is not like, I'm kicking back with the family, throw on a movie. I wouldn't do that with Climax, but I would tell you to check it out and dive into his filmography a little bit more after you watch it, if you're into it. Speaking of movies not to watch with your family, next up, I actually spoke about this once in a previous video. I think it was like, I don't know, some of my favorite movies of all time or something like that. But that is Lords of Chaos. And this movie is, definitely don't watch this one with the family. Don't do that. Lords of Chaos is actually a film about kind of the rise of Norwegian like black metal. And this one band, notorious group, Mayhem. And basically it follows along this true-ish story of these church burnings that were occurring at the time, and a couple grisly murders that happened that were kind of surrounding the movement of this genre of music, which, you know, I come from a hardcore music background. I definitely love me some Norwegian death metal, some Norwegian black metal, but this film kind of came out of nowhere. You have Rory Culkin in here, and it just tells the story of this band and kind of like their rise, and they're putting out this image of extremity, but they're really not. And that when they kind of meet somebody who is into that and does want to take it there, some problems arise, and you have Lords of Chaos. And this movie, so this was put out by Gunpowder and Sky, this Blu-ray. Don't see many people talking about it. I've never really, like, I've seen a couple people post about it, and I love it every time I see it, because it's these types of movies that I want people to watch. I want people to see, because this is a tough movie to get through. The violence doesn't bother me particularly, and it's not the violence in here that is bothersome. It's the impact of the violence. There's not a lot of it per se, but when it happens very, very, very bluntly. It's much more realistic than most horror movies are. It's a much more realistic approach than like a slasher movie would be. It's very brutal, for lack of a better term. The killings that do occur in here are just really hard to watch, and when they're done with, you kind of like need a few minutes to just kind of get out of that and kind of like move on with it. But it's a movie that sticks with you. There's a suicide scene in here that's insane to watch. There's just a lot about this movie that's really, really hard to watch, and it's done for that emotional impact of the story, which, yeah, perfectly fine, but it's a movie that stuck with me. It sticks with me hard. I remember I watched it on, I think it's on Hulu. I think it's still on Hulu to this day. And when it was over, it took me like a week to wash this thing off my mind. It was a long time, and then I bought it. I watched it again and again. It just stuck with me, and it resonated with me, and it like really, you know, made an impact on me that I don't think many movies do. Even the imagery, they recreated a bunch of the church burnings for this. They actually rebuilt the churches and burnt them down. And this movie shot exceptionally well. It does all that really well. It's a great movie to watch. But just be prepared for that impact. I know some people are probably like, oh, if the movie's violent and really hard to watch, how can you recommend that? Because I think films are supposed to be challenging. I think that there are movies designed to be easy watching, and that's fine. That's great. I love those just as much. But I also think that movies are designed to push and challenge the viewer for whatever impact. And at the end of this, it sticks with you much longer than most movies you're going to see will. And that's the legacy of this, is that impact and the visual impact of that violence and that imagery. So if you can find this took me a little while to find. It was a little tough for me. Pick it up. If not, watch it on Hulu. I love Lords of Chaos. I watched it again not too long ago, and I loved it even more that time around. So I definitely recommend go out and check out Lords of Chaos. So just a little kind of double recommendation here. This is actually CHH spoke about one of these in his video, and I was super happy to see it because I'm a big fan of these. These are from Scream Team Releasing, and this is The Barn 1 and 2. These are really cool. They are indie horror films that are packed with really, really cool practical gore effects and just a love for the genre. And Scream Team Releasing is a group of a production company that I've been slowly getting more and more into. They've put out some really cool stuff over the last couple of years. I actually just pre-ordered their newest one, and The Barn was introduced to me at with Tapehead Massacre. We did like a backyard screening a couple Octobers ago. We set up a screen and we played The Barn, and it was just a blast. It's set on Halloween. The whole entire movie screams fall, and it just like it's a ton of fun. It's a horror movie made for horror fans that don't really have that max budget, and I think that actually helps it. And The Barn 2, actually I haven't even seen yet. I'm waiting until Halloween to watch this. I actually picked this up last Monster Mania Scream Team releasing was there, and I was able to grab both of these. But even like the VHS inspired packaging, really, really cool. And this one here has, let's see, so you have Linnea Quigley, Ari Lehman, Joe Bob Briggs, Diana Prince, Darcy the Mail Girl, Lloyd Kaufman, Doug Bradley, and the first one here, let me see, yeah, Linnea Quigley's in this as well, Ari Lehman, with a score by Rocky Gray. So both of these actually come with documentaries making of. A lot of times with these, I guess, smaller budget releases, you don't get all of that cool bonus stuff, but they give you the cool bonus stuff here, And when you watch these, you're going to see, like, man, these are people who love the genre and love doing this, and they're just a ton of fun from beginning to end. So if you get a chance, go over to Scream Team Releasing, pick up the Barn 1 and 2, and don't wait till October to watch them either. Watch them now because they're a ton of fun. Just a quick recommendation with this one. I, much like everyone else, I love a good horror anthology, Trick or Treat, Creepshow, Body Bags, top Tales from the Hood. They're top tier, but really close to that is Tales of Halloween. This is one that I don't see as many people talk about in the discussion of anthologies. And this actually features 10 stories are packed into this. I think it's like 100 and some minutes. But you have directors on here like Neil Marshall directed a short on here. Darren Lynn Bousman from Saw fame, Repo the Genetic Opera. Lucky McKee directed a short on here. And this movie's just like, it's not as serious as a Trick or Treat, which is funny because Trick or Treat isn't really that serious. But this is just like, it's having a lot more fun with the short stories. The practical effects are great. There's a standout one in here where a kid trick-or-treating gets enticed to do something bad, and he ends up like spending the night with somebody. I think it's like the devil, and the kid gets in all kinds of trouble with him, like down to murder. And it turns out they had the kid tied up, and it was actually this little like devil baby dressed in his costume, and the kid's gonna take all the blame for it. That pretty much sums up what every story in Tales of Halloween is like. And this has become an absolute staple for me in October, in the fall. I would say quintessential. This is like top tier Halloween viewing material for me. This release here, I paid a pretty dollar for. This thing is hefty. It comes with a Blu-ray, DVD, bonus features disc, and a soundtrack CD. I'm not saying go spend like the $60 resale value on this. And this is always on like Tubi. I think there was one other that I saw it on this past Halloween as well, but it's available, for streaming, but physical media channel, but yeah, definitely a quick recommendation. Tales of Halloween. I love this one. And, if you haven't seen it yet, take the time to check it out. So into a couple recommendations more in the boutique line, the boutique area of things. One of them being Jodorowsky's Santa Sangre. I found this on Shudder, right? This movie was on Shudder. It was part of the like essential viewing category that they have on there, and I was like, man, what is this? And how long is this movie? I think 90. I don't know. However long this movie is. When it was over, I had the same response. I was like, what is this? So it took me a little bit of time to warm up to this and fully not even understand this film, but develop the love for it and develop the appreciation for it. And we actually went to a really cool store in New York City last time we made a trip there. And I found the 4K. This is a 4K limited edition from Severin. I would tell you, if there's any release of this you're going to pick up, it's this one here. This is another hunky boy. And this has commentaries, deleted scenes. That's just disc 1 and 2, including the 4K. But then 8 hours of bonus features on a third disc. I mean, I'll show you just the list of bonus features over here. Out of control. And then you have the original soundtrack as well on here. But this is another one not for everybody. I read reviews on this after the second time I watched it, and you can definitely see that split of people who are like, I don't understand this. push this off to the side. I don't care about this. And the people who genuinely love it. And I'm right in the middle. Like, to me, it's a great movie. I just feel like I need to dive into features like this and learn a little more about it to gain that appreciation. But if you're a fan of wicked imagery and just like, I don't even know what the word would be, like excess and all of that, just check out Santa Sangre. It's really, really hard for me to be able to fully explain what the experience is like, but it's impactful and it's going to stick with you, which is kind of a running theme of this video. You know, check it out. I know it's on Shudder still, so go ahead and watch Santa Sangre. You won't regret it. So my second to last pick, and probably my favorite one to talk about and to recommend, because I'm always recommending this to people, is Censor. And this exact one here came from Vinegar Syndrome. This is the deluxe one, with this nice little, you know, hard box. But this was a movie to me that came out of nowhere, and like, I don't watch credits. I don't enjoy watching credits. That's when I end the movie. I'm done. And it took me to the end of the credits to really like wrap my head around how much I actually enjoyed Censor. And this is precursor, big fan of video nasties. I've been diving into them now for a couple years, and this tells a story of a woman who is an editor, or she works on pretty much what would be the ratings board. So she watches these horror movies and decides whether or not what's appropriate and what's to cut out and such. And this takes place in the 80s, I believe, 80s, early 90s. And pretty much her sister goes missing, and she tries to find her, and that is when this line, very blurred line between reality and fiction starts. And I don't really want to tell you much more about the plot, because from there, that's when things get really interesting and really crazy and dive into that nightmare mode of like, what the hell is happening? And it turns into, the third act of this is incredible. It's probably the thing that stuck with me the most. But a really cool thing about this release here is there is actually a Vinegar Syndrome always coming through with these bonus features. There is a full 2-part feature-length documentary about video nasties called Ban the Sadist Videos. So after you watch this and you kind of get, you know, a short idea of what was going on at that time with censorship and filmmakers really trying to just put out their vision, and people in offices saying, hey, you can't do that, or people in politics saying, hey man, you can't do that. That's addressed here, but that documentary is, I think, essential viewing after you're done the film. So check out Censor. The standard edition is still out. You can check that out. And I think this is also on Shudder as well. But another release from Vinegar Syndrome, and this is my final recommendation, and this is probably my favorite Vinegar Syndrome release, is Thriller. And this movie here, this is the deluxe limited edition one. But this is really cool. So inside of here you have 2 cases, right? And you have 2 versions of the same movie. And Thriller, this is a rape revenge film, I guess you can say, or you know, sex slave trade revenge film, starring Christina Lindberg, that became banned, right? It was banned by Swedish censorship during the video nasty era, and it never really moved beyond, I think there was some overseas Blu-ray release of it, but it wasn't the uncut version. And this getting this sort of treatment was such a huge deal, and I had never heard of this movie, and this is why, you know, collecting physical media and being in that scene is so cool, introducing you to new things and new films you've never seen before. And I admittedly, Last House on the Left poster over there, I'm a fan of a good revenge film. I absolutely am. I think the last 3/4 is always the best, obviously, when they're getting that revenge. But this is one of those movies that, A, I wasn't prepared for. Was not. B, I came out of it like, fuck yeah. Like, I was so hyped when this movie was over. Which is weird, because you would think, like, man, this movie's pretty nasty. You know, you come out of that feeling pretty nasty. No, I came out hyped after this movie was over. And in this, there is, they call her One Eye, which is the theatrical, or the cut that came out post-ban. And then you have Thriller. I wonder what the actual time difference is here. So the dub theatrical is 90 minutes. And then the Thriller is 108 minutes. So 18 minutes of footage was restored for this. I don't know. Outside of... Okay, if you decide to watch the actual Thriller version, which is one of the big changes is the insert of triple X shots, basically, where in this era, and this isn't the only movie to do it, but in this era, to kind of increase shock value, they would hire adult film stars to film like these close-up scenes of, you know, I don't gotta walk you through this. They would film these close-up scenes and insert them in the movie as if that was what was being filmed right then and there. And the audience, just being the audience, is like, well, wow, look, Christina Lindbergh doing this kind of stuff. And I watching the Black and Manuel set now, and that's very prominent now. Very prominent in Italian cinema at that time. But that's what was going on with Thriller. And I know that that was removed, obviously, for the theatrical cut, for the, they call her one eye cut. So they did reinsert that. That has no impact on the movie. I don't think that was very necessary, let alone, it's not needed. You don't need that to enhance the impact that this movie's gonna have. But basically, while she's stuck, she gets out and she learns how to drive from a what I assume is I thought it was a stunt car driver, because she drives pretty damn well. She also learns how to fire a gun, how to load a gun, all of that stuff. And in the last quarter of this movie, gets her revenge. And when I tell you, this is the Zack Snyder of revenge movies. Every action scene in this movie is in slow motion, and not just like slow motion. Slow motion. And this is back in the day where squibs were used, and every single frame of the actual revenge portion of this movie is awesome. Like, I would tell you, just find the last like 20 minutes of this movie and watch it, because it's so cool. It is like, you know, it's cheesy as hell, and it's gonna get a laugh out of it. But there's a point in the slow motion where there's a scene where she's flipping a cop. She's fighting a cop. In regular motion, this would have taken probably 5 seconds, and it's just like 3 minutes of runtime of this movie. But of everything I have showed you, you know, this one has a particular flavor. It requires a particular person to really enjoy this as much as I did, I think. But it's really, really cool. And if you can get your hands on Thriller, on that that band cut, please check it out. But yeah, my final recommendation is good old Thriller. You know, sometimes as I'm doing videos like this, I'm like, man, like, if I was to just like start a conversation with somebody on the street and tell them about these movies, they'd probably put me in jail, or most of us in jail, for enjoying this stuff. But you know, when I watch videos like this, even if I've heard of 90% of the titles talked about, there's always something I take away from it. And I hope that there's a title in here that you're like, oh, you know what? I should check that out. That sounds right up my alley. So I thought this was just fun. I thought it was like, I was kind of looking at the collection right after I finished CHH's video, and I was like, man, this is, I think I got some stuff to talk about here. So of all of them, let me know if there's any you haven't seen and that you're going to be seeking out. If you do decide to watch any of them for the first time, hit me up on my Instagram account. It's the same name. It's BeardedFilmGuy. Let me know what you think. I'm down to have the deepest discussion in the world about any of these titles with you, especially if it's a first-time watch. But outside of that, I hope this video gave you some inspiration to watch something new. Yeah, I'll catch y'all later.